Michael Jordan is wrongfully denied a room at the Imperial Sunset Hotel due to racial discrimination, despite availability. The rain hit the pavement in torrents as Michael Jordan's black SUV glided through the quiet streets of Long Beach. The night was heavy with the sounds of the storm, and the world around him seemed to hum with a rhythm only the rain could orchestrate. Michael, the living legend who had conquered the basketball courts, now found himself on a different kind of battlefield. The goal wasn't a championship trophy, but a simple request: a place to rest for the night. His flight had been delayed, and all he wanted was a bed to sleep in before he could move on with his journey. Little did he know, the walls of luxury and glittering chandeliers that beckoned him into the Imperial Sunset Hotel would conceal a much darker reality within. Stepping out of his vehicle, Michael adjusted the collar of his leather jacket. Standing 6 feet 6 inches tall, his presence was impossible to ignore. Yet he walked into the lobby not as a hero or a celebrity, but simply as a tired traveler, eager to recharge. The grand interior of the hotel was everything one would expect: marble floors that gleamed with a polished sheen, expensive chandeliers overhead casting a golden glow across the room, and a subtle fragrance of roses filling the air. It was a sanctuary of wealth, of comfort, but for Michael, it would prove to be an illusion. At the front desk stood a young man, no more than 25, with slicked-back blonde hair and an air of arrogance that came with an unearned sense of superiority. His name tag read Evan. Michael approached with his usual calm demeanor, greeted him with a friendly smile, and explained his predicament. "I'd like a room for the night," Michael said, his voice warm but exhausted. "My flight was delayed and I just need somewhere to rest for a few hours." But Evan's response was cold, detached, and unbothered. "We're fully booked," he said dismissively, without even glancing up from the computer screen. The words barely left his mouth before Michael looked around, noticing the empty chairs in the lobby and the quiet buzz of an elevator arriving with only one passenger. The hotel wasn't busy at all. Michael raised an eyebrow, his smile unwavering as he glanced over the lobby again. "Fully booked? Not a single room?" he repeated. Evan finally met Michael's eyes, a thin smile creeping onto his face. "That's correct," he replied, his tone still unchanged. Michael's heart sank as he processed the situation, feeling the sting of an experience all too familiar. This wasn't just about availability, it wasn't about a lack of rooms or a late arrival. It was something deeper, something insidious that he had faced before in many forms: racism. As if on cue, the doors swung open, and a middle-aged couple entered the lobby, their luggage rolling behind them. Michael watched as Evan's entire demeanor shifted. The warmth in his voice returned instantly, and his smile grew wider, welcoming the couple with an enthusiasm that had been absent just moments ago. "Welcome to the Imperial Sunset. Do you have a reservation?" Evan asked eagerly. The couple nodded, and in mere seconds, Evan was typing away on his keyboard, securing a room for them. "Here you go. Enjoy your stay," he said cheerfully as he handed them a key. Michael stood motionless, watching the exchange unfold, the weight of what had just happened settling heavily in his chest. He wasn't foolish enough to believe that this was just a mistake or a coincidence. This was intentional. "Didn't you just say you were fully booked?" Michael asked, his voice calm but filled with an unmistakable edge. Evan hesitated, his eyes flickering nervously as his forced smile faltered. I meant to say, we don't have anything that fits your needs," Evan stammered. Michael nodded slowly, absorbing the impact of those words. The cold realization hit him. This wasn't about availability or timing. It was about bias, discrimination, and prejudice. And for the first time in years, Michael wasn't stepping into a world where he could dominate with his skills or break records. This wasn't a place where his reputation would shield him. This was a place where the color of his skin mattered more than his name, his fame, or his accomplishments. He didn't let the anger bubble up, though. No, he knew better. He'd learned long ago that anger was a fleeting, destructive force. Instead, he felt something far more powerful: determination. This wasn't the end of the night. This was the beginning of something much greater, something that he would fight for with everything he had. As he walked out of the hotel under the pounding rain, his mind was already set. Michael Jordan wasn't just going to walk away from this. No, he would change the rules of the game. He had always risen above challenges, and this time, it wouldn't be different. His fight for justice was only beginning. Michael Jordan decides to buy the hotel and take action to address the mistreatment he faced and bring about change. The night air was heavy with the sound of the rain as it lashed against the windows of Michael Jordan's SUV. He sat in the back seat, his mind racing. The sting of the rejection at the Imperial Sunset Hotel was not one he had anticipated. Throughout his life, Michael had faced challenges, from growing up in a tough neighborhood to being overlooked in high school to the countless slights and setbacks in his career. But this felt different. This wasn't just about him. It was about something bigger, something that ran deeper than the superficial encounters that filled his life. This was a clear and undeniable act of discrimination, one that he could not and would not let slide. As the rain continued to pour down, Michael stared out of the window, his eyes lost in the stormy streets of Long Beach. The road ahead seemed uncertain, but his resolve was firm. He knew what he had to do. Michael Jordan wasn't just going to walk away. He had faced adversity his entire life, but now it wasn't just about facing down opponents on a basketball court. It was about confronting something that had been embedded in society for far too long. He wasn't a man who relied on others to fight his battles. Michael had spent his career proving that his legacy wasn't just about points on the scoreboard. It was about using his platform, his influence, to make a difference. He had spent years building an empire, in basketball, in business, in branding. But this moment, was a chance for him to do something even more powerful. He could fight for change, not just for himself, but for everyone who had ever been treated unjustly because of their race, their status, or their background. As he sat there in the back of his SUV, Michael made a decision. He would not be defined by the prejudice he had encountered. Instead, he would use his success and resources to change the very system that allowed such discrimination to persist. He would buy the hotel. He would take ownership, not just of a building, but of the opportunity to dismantle a culture of exclusion and bias that had been allowed to thrive unchecked. He picked up his phone, dialing the number of his trusted lawyer, Lisa Reynolds. Lisa was known for her no-nonsense attitude, her ability to close deals at lightning speed, and her sharp legal mind. When she answered, Michael's voice was calm but determined. "Lisa, I need you to get the paperwork ready. I want to buy the Imperial Sunset Hotel by morning." Lisa, always quick to adapt to whatever challenge Michael set before her, paused for only a moment before responding, "You want that hotel now? That's ambitious even for you, Mike." "I don't care how ambitious it is," Michael replied. "I need you to make it happen. No excuses. Have the deal ready. I'll sign the papers electronically, but I want it done before the sun comes up." Michael hung up and leaned back in his seat, his thoughts racing. He knew this wasn't just a simple business deal. It wasn't about owning another property in a growing portfolio. This was about setting a precedent. This was about sending a message to every person who had ever been turned away or mistreated because of who they were, what they looked like, or where they came from. The message was clear. No one should ever be made to feel less than because of their race or background. For hours, as the rain continued to fall and the world outside seemed frozen in time, Michael's team worked tirelessly, finalizing the paperwork, negotiating terms, and ensuring every detail was in place. This was no small transaction, but Michael wasn't new to high-stakes deals. He knew how to get things done, how to push through when the odds seemed insurmountable. By the time the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, Michael had what he needed. The Imperial Sunset Hotel was now his. He didn't buy the hotel to add another feather to his cap, he bought it to change its heart. And he would make sure that every person who stepped foot into that hotel from this day forward would be treated with the dignity and respect they deserved. As Michael drove back to the hotel, the golden light of the rising sun illuminated the hotel's facade, casting a false sense of grandeur over the place. The hotel, once a symbol of opulence and luxury, had now become a symbol of something much greater, an opportunity to redefine what hospitality truly meant. Michael stepped out of his car, adjusting his tailored suit as he approached the front doors of the Imperial Sunset Hotel. He was no longer just a celebrity walking into a hotel. He was now the owner, the leader, and the catalyst for change. and he would make sure the world would know that this wasn't just a victory for him. This was a victory for every person who had ever been dismissed, ignored, or rejected. As he walked through the front doors of the hotel, Michael's mind was clear. The task ahead was monumental, but he was ready. The storm he had weathered the night before had only made him stronger, and now, as the new owner of the Imperial Sunset Hotel, he was going to make sure that this place would reflect the values of fairness, inclusion, and respect. The work was just beginning, but Michael Jordan had already won. He had taken the first step in creating a legacy that would outlive him, a legacy that said loud and clear, everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, no matter who they are. Michael confronts the staff, including the receptionist Evan, who was immediately fired for his actions. The sun had barely risen, casting a warm amber glow over Long Beach as Michael Jordan walked back into the Imperial Sunset Hotel. It was no longer just a place he had been denied entry. It was now his domain. He didn't walk through the doors with anger or vengeance, but with the weight of something far more important: purpose. He wasn't there to show off his power or to flaunt his wealth. He was there to bring a new sense of justice, to cleanse a place that had allowed discrimination to fester in the shadows for far too long. Michael's eyes swept over the lobby, now his to command, but he wasn't interested in the grand marble floors or the polished wood. What mattered to him now were the faces of the people who worked there, those who had been complicit in a culture that had allowed one of their own to treat a guest with such disdain, the same faces that had exchanged uncomfortable glances and murmured behind the closed doors of their offices, probably never questioning the system that had allowed Evan, the young receptionist, to wield his power over those he judged unworthy. But now, the power had shifted. Michael Jordan had stepped in, and the rules of the game were about to change. The first person Michael locked eyes with was Evan. The young receptionist looked up from his desk and his eyes widened, panic flickering across his face as the realization hit him. The man he had dismissed so easily, so callously the night before, was now standing before him as the hotel's owner. But Michael wasn't interested in Evan's shock or his apologies. He had made up his mind the moment he had walked out of the hotel the night before. The dismissal wasn't just about the room that was denied to him. It was about the power dynamics, the inherent prejudice, and the treatment of people who were seen as other. People who didn't belong in the world of luxury and privilege that the hotel represented. Michael walked up to the front desk, his steps deliberate and firm, the kind of confidence that came not from arrogance but from knowing what he stood for. Without saying a word, he placed a sleek black folder on the counter, its sharp edges cutting through the air like a final declaration. The room seemed to hold its breath as Michael opened the folder, revealing documents that would forever change the trajectory of the hotel. His eyes never left Evan, whose hands shook slightly as he looked down at the papers. It wasn't the papers that had rattled Evan. It was the man behind them. The man whose reputation for winning against impossible odds had now come full circle. Michael Jordan had won in ways that went far beyond basketball. "I'm here to make an announcement," Michael said, his voice calm but commanding. "My name is Michael Jordan, and as of this morning, I own this hotel." The words hung in the air, unyielding and clear. Evan's face drained of color and his mouth parted, but no words came out. He stumbled for a response, but Michael cut him off before he could speak. "I was here last night and I saw what you did," Michael continued, his tone unshaken. "You turned me away not because the hotel was full, but because of who I am. And that is unacceptable." Evan opened his mouth to defend himself, but Michael raised a hand, silencing him. "No, you don't get to explain yourself. Actions speak louder than words, and your actions last night spoke volumes. I don't need your excuses." Michael's gaze was unwavering as he spoke. His words were not just directed at Evan. They were meant for everyone in the room. The staff who had witnessed the incident, the employees who had tolerated a culture of exclusion, and everyone who had ever allowed such injustice to go unchallenged. The truth was, Michael wasn't just confronting Evan, he was confronting the culture of fear and bias that had been allowed to fester, unchallenged, for far too long. This hotel was supposed to be a place of hospitality, but instead, it had become a place where discrimination ran quietly beneath the surface. Michael wasn't going to let that stand. "Effective immediately," Michael continued, you're fired. Your actions last night were a direct reflection of the toxicity that has been allowed to thrive here, and I won't stand for it." Evan's face went pale. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by sheer confusion and fear. The staff around them froze, unsure of how to react. But Michael wasn't finished. He wasn't about to let this moment pass without making it clear that this wasn't just about Evan's failure. This was about the entire institution and the way it had perpetuated an environment of injustice. "I'm not here to punish anyone unjustly," Michael said, his voice softening slightly. "But if you can't treat people with the respect and dignity they deserve, there is no place for you here. And that goes for everyone." Michael turned to the rest of the staff, who had been watching the exchange in stunned silence. "This hotel will be different. It will be a place where every person, no matter their race, background, or status, is treated with dignity. That's non-negotiable. We'll have new training, new policies, but most of all, we'll have a new culture. A culture where respect is not just a word, it's a way of life." The staff looked at each other, exchanging uncertain glances. Michael wasn't a man of idle words. He had always backed up his actions with results, and they knew this was only the beginning of something much bigger. As Michael walked away from the front desk, Evan stood there, speechless, as the weight of what had just transpired settled in. For Michael Jordan, this wasn't just about firing an employee or even about changing a business. It was about confronting an ugly truth and using his power to dismantle it. Michael didn't just want to change the hotel. He wanted to change the hearts and minds of the people who worked there. He wanted to leave a legacy of respect, justice, and inclusion, not just in the hotel, but in the world. And with that simple yet powerful act of firing Evan, he had taken the first step toward doing just that. The hotel undergoes a transformation, both physically and culturally, focusing on inclusion, respect, and fairness. The transformation of the Imperial Sunset Hotel was not merely a superficial one. It was a profound, deep-rooted shift in values, culture, and purpose. Michael Jordan understood something that many business owners failed to grasp. True change starts from within. It's not enough to make cosmetic updates, slap a fresh coat of paint on a building and call it a day. The soul of a place, its very essence, had to be altered. And for Michael, this wasn't just a business venture, it was a mission. A chance to rewrite the narrative of what hospitality could be, in a world where division and exclusion still lingered in places many considered untouchable. As soon as Michael Jordan took control, the first thing he focused on was the staff. He wasn't interested in grand speeches or flowery promises. He knew that the heart of the hotel's transformation lay in its people. The existing staff, many of whom had silently witnessed the ingrained bias of the hotel, needed to be re-educated, to see the world through a new lens, one where respect wasn't an optional luxury, but a mandatory value. He hired a team of experts in diversity, equity, and inclusion to develop comprehensive workshops for every single person who worked at the Imperial Sunset. From the housekeepers to the front desk attendants, from the kitchen staff to the bellhops, no one was exempt. Michael knew that in order to change the culture, every employee needed to not only understand the significance of equality, but to internalize it, to live it, breathe it, and apply it every time they interacted with a guest. These workshops weren't simple one-time training sessions. They were designed to be ongoing, to challenge the employees in a way that forced them to confront their own biases and prejudices, to examine the ways in which they had unknowingly perpetuated a system of exclusion. They were asked to listen to the stories of people from different walks of life, to see the experiences of others as valid and worthy of empathy. They were shown what it meant to truly provide inclusive hospitality, to make every guest, regardless of their race, background, or appearance, feel like they belonged. But Michael's vision for change didn't stop at training. He began the physical renovations that would mirror the cultural shift he was implementing. The once cold, sterile marble floors were replaced with warm, inviting hardwood, rich with the character of the people who walked on them. The lobby, which had once felt like a high-end showroom, was transformed into a space that welcomed people of all backgrounds. Comfortable seating areas were added, surrounded by artwork that celebrated diversity, showcasing the rich cultural heritage of Long Beach. Fresh flowers from local growers were placed throughout the hotel, creating an atmosphere of warmth and vibrancy. The walls, once adorned with generic luxury art, were replaced with works that told stories. Stories of struggle, resilience, triumph, and community. Michael wanted the hotel to reflect not just the luxury of its exterior, but the richness of the human experience. No longer would the hotel's aesthetic reflect exclusivity. Instead, it would symbolize unity, belonging, and inclusiveness. He also implemented new policies to ensure that every guest's experience was valued. The guest services team, who once simply checked in guests and handed out keys, now underwent training in how to create meaningful connections with guests. They were taught to treat every individual with the respect and courtesy they deserved, not because they were paying customers, but because they were human beings deserving of dignity. Beyond the visible changes, Michael also focused on the intangible, the culture of the hotel. He made it clear to his staff that there would be no tolerance for discrimination of any kind, no matter how subtle or disguised. He wanted to foster an environment where bias was not only addressed but actively eradicated. He established a zero-tolerance policy for racism, sexism, homophobia, or any form of prejudice. Employees who failed to meet these standards were given the opportunity to learn and grow, but if they refused, they were shown the door. Michael didn't just want to run a profitable hotel. He wanted to run a place where everyone, staff, guests, and the community, could feel safe, valued, and respected. This was not an easy process. Resistance didn't come solely from the outside world, but from within the hotel as well. Not everyone was eager to embrace these changes, and Michael knew it. Some employees were uncomfortable with the new policies, unwilling to let go of old habits and ingrained beliefs. But Michael wasn't deterred. He kept the lines of communication open, encouraged dialogue, and made sure that his staff understood that this transformation was necessary, not just for the future of the hotel, but for the future of the world they lived in. The physical changes to the hotel were completed in stages, but the cultural shift began almost immediately. The guests who entered the hotel, some of them skeptical, others hopeful, began to notice the difference. They could feel it in the air, in the way the staff greeted them, in the way the hotel no longer felt like an exclusive playground for the privileged, but a welcoming space for all. The guest reviews, once filled with critiques of cold, detached service, now spoke of warmth, hospitality, and an atmosphere of belonging. The reviews were filled with praise for the hotel's newly found inclusivity. But Michael knew that the impact of these changes wasn't confined to the walls of the Imperial Sunset Hotel. It had ripple effects. The transformation of the hotel inspired the surrounding community. It created a conversation about what true hospitality should look like, about what it means to provide a space where people from all backgrounds can feel seen, heard, and respected. As the months went by, Michael would often visit the hotel, not to check up on the renovations or the finances, but to make sure that the culture he had worked so hard to build was still alive. He would walk through the lobby, interact with the staff, and listen to the stories of the guests. He was a man who had always led by example, and now he was leading the charge for something even greater than success. He was leading for change, and the Imperial Sunset Hotel had become a living testament to that change. The hotel's success and impact, with reviews praising the new inclusive environment and positive change. The change in the Imperial Sunset Hotel wasn't just a story of a physical transformation. It became a testament to the power of leadership, purpose, and commitment to justice. Under Michael Jordan's guidance, the hotel was reborn, not as a monument to exclusivity, but as a symbol of inclusivity, fairness, and respect for every individual who walked through its doors. This wasn't just about business. This was about creating a legacy that would outlive the hotel itself, one rooted in the values Michael had always stood for: unity, equality, and a relentless pursuit of excellence, not just on the basketball court, but in life. As the hotel began to settle into its new identity, the impact it had on both the local community and the wider world became undeniable. It wasn't just the renovations or the new policies that made a difference. It was the cultural shift that rippled through every corner of the hotel, touching the lives of every guest, every staff member, and every person who interacted with the hotel in any way. The walls, now adorned with art that told the story of diverse cultures and histories, served as a constant reminder that the hotel was no longer a place for the elite few, but a sanctuary for all. Guests who walked into the hotel began to notice the difference immediately. No longer did the hotel feel like a cold, impersonal institution. The atmosphere was warmer, more welcoming. The staff greeted each guest with sincerity, not because they had to, but because they believed in the principles Michael had instilled in them. Whether it was the housekeeper who struck up a conversation with a guest to make them feel at home, or the front desk clerk who took the time to listen to a guest's story, every interaction was infused with kindness and respect. The reviews started pouring in, and they told a story that went beyond just a comfortable stay. Guests were no longer merely commenting on the cleanliness of the rooms or the luxury of the amenities. They were praising the very soul of the hotel. One guest wrote, "I've stayed at 5-star hotels all over the world, but this place, it's different. They don't just treat you like a guest, they treat you like family. The warmth and kindness I felt here were genuine, and that made all the difference." Another review read, "What I love most about this hotel is the sense of community. It's not just a place to stay. It's a place that feels like it belongs to all of us. Every guest, regardless of who they are, is treated with dignity and respect, and that's what sets this place apart." But it wasn't just the guests who felt the change. The employees did too. The staff, who had once worked under the weight of unspoken expectations and a culture of discrimination, now found themselves working in an environment that valued their contributions. They weren't just workers at a hotel. They were ambassadors of a vision, representatives of a new way of doing business. The training sessions Michael had implemented helped them to see their work in a new light, and the positive impact it had on their interactions with guests was immediate and profound. Maria, the housekeeper who had long felt overlooked and undervalued, was one of the first to notice the difference. She had always been diligent in her work, but now she felt a sense of pride that had been absent for years. She was no longer just another nameless employee. She was an integral part of something greater. Her positive attitude and unwavering commitment to making every guest feel welcome didn't go unnoticed. Michael took notice of her hard work and dedication, and one day, he approached her with a smile. "Maria," he said, "you've been exceptional in your role. How would you feel about stepping into a leadership position here?" Maria, overwhelmed with emotion, could hardly believe what she was hearing. For the first time in years, someone saw her for who she truly was, someone worthy of recognition and opportunity. She accepted the offer, and her transformation from housekeeper to assistant manager was just one example of how the hotel was not only changing the lives of its guests, but also the lives of its staff. As word spread about the transformation, the hotel began to attract attention from all over. It wasn't just the local community that took notice. National and even international media outlets began covering the story of how Michael Jordan had taken an ordinary hotel and turned it into a beacon of inclusion and respect. The story was inspiring not just because of Michael's wealth or fame, but because of the deeper message it conveyed, that true leadership is about lifting others up, about creating opportunities for those who are often overlooked, and about fostering an environment where everyone can thrive, regardless of their background. The media attention brought even more guests, each curious to experience the change for themselves. What they found was not just a beautiful hotel, but a place where they felt valued, where their presence mattered. It was a place where the luxury wasn't just in the amenities or the design, but in the way people treated each other. The atmosphere was one of mutual respect, and the hotel's reputation for exceptional service soon became synonymous with its commitment to inclusivity. Michael's impact on the hotel wasn't just about the bottom line. It was about creating a space that redefined what hospitality could mean. He had taken a place that had once been a symbol of exclusion and turned it into a model for how businesses should treat their customers and employees alike. The Imperial Sunset Hotel was now a living, breathing example of how change was possible, even in places where it seemed unlikely. As Michael sat back and watched the hotel thrive, he knew that the work he had started wasn't finished. There would always be challenges, always more work to be done. But the success of the hotel, the praise from guests, the happiness of the staff, and the impact it had on the community told him one thing, that he had made a difference. And for Michael Jordan, that was all that truly mattered. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content. Leave a comment below and let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you.